We are here with state economist David Cooke to hear about employment figures for February. David, can you give us a summary of Oregon's employment situation?
Yes, let me start off by saying that these numbers are not going to be impacted by the coronavirus situation because they're dealing with February data, and it's primarily data that's for the week that included February 12th. So not a lot of economic impacts were happening at that point from the coronavirus. So let's jump into it. The February unemployment rate for Oregon was 3.3%, the same as January. And then we had payroll employment rising by 3,100 jobs in February.
Can you tell us when will the COVID-19 impacts start being reflected in the numbers?
Right. Well, we don't expect to see them during our next press release, which is April 14th. That will be talking about the March numbers, and they will be for the pay period that included March 12th, that particular week. And so that was just a week ago. And we know that there really wasn't a huge amount of impact in terms of the economy locally at that point in time. And also the way that the numbers work is a person has to be unemployed, for example, for that whole week in order to be counted as unemployed. If they work just a little bit of the week, they're still counted as employed. Same for the jobs report. If they worked at all for an employer during that reference period, they were counted as employed. So it's going to take quite a while before we see the impacts of this in terms of the employment numbers. And then in May 19th, we'll come out with the April numbers, and they should be reflecting some of the impact because we already know a lot of the economic impact that's happening now in mid-March.
Switching gears back to February's numbers, how does February's low unemployment rate compare with historical figures?
So we had 3.3% unemployment rate in February, lowest on record. We're below the U.S. a little bit. The U.S. was 3.5% for February. Same as January, we had 3.3% in Oregon for Oregon's unemployment rate. And if we look back over time, we were at a high point during the last recession, around 12% back in 2009. The rate dropped pretty steadily. Back in 2017, 2018, 2019, we were pretty close to 4%. And then just recently, we've dropped down to 3.3%. Lowest on records dating back to 1976.
Moving on to jobs, where do February's job gains fit into the larger picture?
Right, so we had a decent gain between January and February, up 3,100 jobs. That's the total non-farm payroll employment. And then the January numbers were revised upwards so a little bit, so they show only a loss of 300 jobs in January, when originally we'd said negative 1,800 jobs for January. So we're seeing some resumed growth in the over-the-month changes. And then the strongest gains came in construction, which added construction added 1,700 jobs in January, and then professional and business services added 1,300 jobs. We did see a decline in one of the industries. Manufacturing cut 500 jobs in February, but most of the other industries performed very close to their typical pattern for the month.
So all in all, what can we say about Oregon's economy?
So the most recent numbers are for the month of February, the first part of February, and the economy was at record levels at that point. We had the unemployment rate down to its lowest reading in decades, and then we had a resumption in payroll growth. The payroll growth was up 1.4% over the most recent 12 months, so that's a moderate pace of job growth, and the numbers are a little bit better than what we were looking at a couple weeks ago when we released the January payroll figures.